We'll call. Well, we don't call the meeting. We're going to just start. And we're going to go. We have all the board members here, plus our student member. And Matt, I'll let you take over for communications.
All right. So, Mary, you want to start?
I'd like to. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Hi. Just a couple of things going on in the elementary building. We have conferences coming up this Thursday. We're doing from 12 to 8 p.m. And all the parents have been scheduled. The elementary staff did a really nice job of picking those schedules so that each family could be represented and not have to run all over the building in a very short amount of time. So I was really impressed with how they worked together to make that happen. We're rolling out our e-learning plan. So staff have had a chance to upload those to a shared website, and then they practiced a little bit with their students what that might look like, where they were the resource at the table or at their desk, and then the kiddos were working on an activity, and then if they needed help, they could contact the teacher for help. So it's exciting, and they'll be sharing that plan with parents at conferences as well. Last week we had the evacuation drill where we went over to the Catholic Church on our way over here for the Pep Fest, and that went really well. Marlene met us at the doors and showed us where we would go if there were an evacuation and there were a funeral or another event being held in the shared space there. She directed us that we would go to the classroom, so really successful. Our local police officers helped us with crossing 55 both times, so 2 thumbs up for them as well. We're also looking heavily at this time of year at our data. So our elementary staff have a new program called FAST that we use to assess kiddos in the basics of reading and math. And we're going to be training teachers on Friday how to use that and how to look deeper at the data. And then, of course, as the year progresses, how we can use that data to impact our instruction. So it should help us with our power half hours and making sure we meet the needs of all of our kiddos. Any questions from any of you? Fantastic.
Thanks, Mary. David?
Sorry. Good evening. We also have conferences coming up on Thursday from 12 to 8, and we are completely doing our conferences completely different this year. So all of our teachers will be in the middle school gym. So instead of only speaking to the advisor, all the teachers will be available. It's going to be a busy night here. We have home volleyball, and it's senior night and parents' night. And so there's free admission for anyone who wants to come and check out the volleyball match and attend conferences. We have our flu shot clinic, which will be going on in the conference room by the community ed area. And part of what we'll do in the gym is Amy and Cassandra will be there with an information table, and we're going to just have them be available to guide parents and families to the right teacher. We'll have information on MCAs, e-learning, and just anything else, infinite campus questions. We're hoping to have a couple Chromebooks there in case there's a few families that still need to get their family account set up. Homecoming week, I think it was a success. I'm still standing here after my first one, so just a lot of people put in a lot of effort with the dances and the activities and things like that, so I just really appreciate that. On Friday we had our tailgating party before the football game, and that was a joint effort with Eden Valley Watkins. If you were there, you saw that we had the green footballs and the blue footballs and the green and blue bracelets, and with the free will donation, we served over 500 hot dogs, and we raised almost $1,100, and then the credit union is going to kick in another $250. So we'll be splitting that with Eden Valley Watkins, and it'll go towards mental health initiatives. So I think a really cool thing. I talked to the principal at Eden Valley today to let him know, and they're already kicking around an idea to do something at a basketball game this winter as a joint effort. So I think that's really a cool thing for 2 rivalries to come together for a good cause, and I think we can continue to grow with that. I just wanted to make mention of our RTI program that we are getting started with our middle school students. It's a multi-tiered system of support, and Maria Rasmussen has, she's been the coordinator of that, and she's just been doing a fantastic job. And we have so many supports in place with Maria and Todd Spanier and Chad Campbell, and just offering supports that really have never been offered before. And so we're really excited to as that continues to grow. And in probably a month or so, I'm going to plan on having Maria come in and maybe just talk a little bit about that program, so you can see the great things that she's got going. So, any questions for me?
MEA break, is that next week, right?
Yes.
Do you guys have any big conferences or any workshops? Are you guys doing anything next week? Just out of curiosity.
So our in-service day is the 11th, is this Friday.
Okay.
The 17th and 18th. We do not have anything planned here, but that is the large Education Minnesota Conference. I think it's still at St. Paul River Center is where it's on the 17th and the 18th.
Excellent. Just curious. Thanks.
Hard to believe that we're ready to the end of the fall regular seasons. They're right around the corner, and so we're kind of cruising through that part of the school year, and I'm just making sure that we're all ready to go for winter. It just kind of blends itself together. I think I'll just echo what David said as far as homecoming. It was an uneventful week as far as major student issues or anything like that, so that was fantastic. It's because of the leaders that we have in our building, the student body, they're the ones that take care of that. We had a huge crowd for the volleyball game on Thursday. On Friday night, we had a 40-year celebration for the 1979 state football team, and there was a good number of those players that were able to attend, and sounded like they had a good time, and we're grateful for that. In the Innovation Center, they actually made badges or little lanyard things that they picked up at the main gate, got them in free, and they could go on the sideline or do whatever and keep as a keepsake. So that was kind of neat. It was cool to tell them they made them right here at school. And 3-day school week this week. I don't think any of the kids are complaining about that. And for some reason, there's one next week as well. So I mean, that's just going to make this fall season for us go even faster. I can say that it is really nice to have the police liaison on just a schedule and a consistent basis here at school. On Friday, we had a situation where, with everything that's going on with homecoming, he was able to address a discipline issue with some students in a hallway that just looked suspicious, that he was just sitting there watching the camera, that we probably wouldn't have even caught it. And so just a really good thing for the safety of the kids and for keeping an eye on this. With everything that's going on, there's going to be times where we just can't see everything in the building, and it's just another set of eyes and active. And I think also maybe word gets out among student body that that type of stuff is happening, and so it maybe curtails it a little bit as well. I don't really have a whole lot else to report on, unless anybody has any questions for me.
So did you guys hear the news too about Mr. Maher?
Yes.
Yeah.
So congratulations. He was selected as the Week 4 Youth Football Coach of the Week. So he had someone from the Vikings organization came out and talked to the team and stuff. So I thought that was neat as well. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. On those lines, because of that, we were created a connection with them when he came out. So when we went down to Elgin for a football game, we were looking for a spot to stop partway down. So our team got to tour TCO, which is the Vikings training facility, and then apparently it's $15 to go into the museum per person, and our whole team got to go in and experience that for free. Our football program will be getting a $1,000 donation from the Vikings, and then just on Friday, a whole huge package of Gatorade stuff, so all kinds of mix, coolers, cups, protein bars, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a good deal for our kids, so thank you.
Okay, a few different program areas. We just had our first advisory council meeting of the year today, so I had a lot of facts and figures. But we're at 105 right now for our pause program. So afternoon daily attendance close to that 80 students. So it's pretty full, so which is good. Update on our live stream program. We've really taken it up to the next level this year. So we have instituted now our full instant replay for our home games. Last Friday's game, we had 760 views at the time the game ended, 18,200 minutes of watch time, and 141 peak people on at one time, and comments from all over the state, so, which is kind of cool. Our away game, which is our first trial at that, we weren't able to offer all of our bells and whistles there, but Jacob took our traveling rig. We had 972 views before the game was over, 14,000 watch time minutes. Our top volleyball game so far this year has had over 460 views. So that's been kind of fun. What's most satisfying to me is the last football game was totally produced by a student. I was able to step away from the booth, and one of our junior students produced it. A sixth grader recorded it. And then we had our talent, of course, on there. So we had our first batch of Community Ed t-shirts created by our entrepreneurship class, so we're very proud of them. So those will be going out to soccer actually this week, so they looked really great. We're planning our winter brochure now, and we're dreaming and planning of all the new fun activities that are going to be in the community center. So of course that's a couple years out, but so if you have ideas or plans even for this winter and upcoming, but also for things that you'd want us to look at for in the future in the community center. And I think that's it. Any questions for me?
I'll just state I've been one of the viewers on many of the live streams.
Oh, good.
And we can't make many of the games. We're always traveling, whatever, but I've loved it. This last volleyball game I watched, the instant replay, and yeah, the Lee and whoever he's got next to him commenting on the games is just, it's amazing. I told my wife, I said I'd much rather watch that live stream than North Dakota State University volleyball match, because they're just kind of chintzy there, but I just felt like it just really, it connects really well with our community, and I don't know too many people in town that doesn't know Lee Schlaper, so it's wonderful. He's just got such a personality on there, and then the football game's been great, so I've really appreciated the ability to watch as many of them as I have.
Good, so. Thanks. Yeah, and what's neat about volleyball is Nicole's given us a freshman to come up in the booth each week, so I really want more students involved. So I emailed Max on a freshman for football, but I haven't heard back from him yet. So
Erica did a great job with Lee.
Yeah, Erica did great.
It was very entertaining.
Good, thanks.
And I did tell Matt earlier that I parked in the far corner on Friday night and had to make several trips back and forth to my vehicle, and weaving through the parking lot, there's a lot of people sitting in their cars streaming. It
got a little cold at the end, so this week might be the same thing. So yeah, good. Thanks for the feedback. Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
I do have just one thing for buildings and grounds.
Go for it.
So Donnie can't be here tonight for buildings and grounds. I do want to just give the board a heads up on an issue that is coming. So we have continued to work on the issue with the fuel oil tank. We ended last winter without having to be able to use fuel oil if we got put on curtailment because of what we thought was a faulty line. It is a faulty line. So we have the bill to repair it is just under $12,000. I guess sitting here and knowing that the boilers are going to be replaced shortly, I'm not really too excited about paying a $12,000 bill. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to investigate what would be our maximum exposure if we absolutely did get called for curtailment and we couldn't curtail, what we would be fined, and then look at that and compare that to our repair bill. I did, and Donnie did contact Centerpoint to see if we could just switch out of our incentive program into single source fuel for the winter, and they are stating that it's too late in the year for them to be able to make that switch. So I'll know more by the regular board meeting in October. I'm assuming it'll be something the board will hear more about in October, but just know that we think we have the solution figured out. Now it's just a question of if we're going to go ahead and make that repair now, or if we're just going to wait and take care of it when we're actually replacing the boilers anyway. There still is a chance that when we do replace the boilers, we may go to a single fuel source anyways, and so it might not be the most prudent thing to go ahead with the repair at this time, but more to come. Decision is not final or anything, but I just wanted the board to be aware of it.
Good. Okay, then we are on the design team update. So, as we know, there's 3 of us on the design group. The most important thing here is that I'd just like to say up front is if questions arise or anything else, get to the 3 of us somehow. If it's 5 days in and we're another 3 weeks till we have this meeting to go over it, we don't want to wait. You need to be communicating with us. If you hear something, get back to us. So we're not at this meeting trying to fund a whole bunch of questions that we might not know the answers to anyway at that point. And if they could come to us on the go, does that make sense to you guys? Most important issue here is that all 7 of us know, all 8, soon to be 9, know kind of what's going on all the time so that we're informed. And Matt is always there too, so questions could go through him, I'm assuming. So just keep them coming rather than wait for this meeting. This meeting is for us to do the update. So you will see on here that we have the notes from the September meeting. It was more organizational style of how we were going to move forward. Some summary of what we had done over the last few years that we put in there. Did everybody get a chance to look at it? Do you have questions related to anything in there?
I guess the one thing that jumped out at me just skimming through it and kind of putting things into my head was the community ed offices may not be big enough, but it sounded like you had already spoken about that in the notes.
Yeah, we had some discussion on that of the usage of the square footage. And Matt was in there on that. It's fluid, let's call it fluid at the moment.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Is that fair enough, Matt, on our discussion?
Where the location's gonna be? Or-
Yeah, and the exact square footage that you might need and some of that.
Yeah, so really the discussion came around is, do we want and need a secure entrance? Because currently in the plans, there's 500 square feet for community ed offices, but it's after you already get into the building. So we're talking about, how could we move that square footage so they would have to come through there to get into the building to make it more secure. So they'll be bringing back some plans, I think, at our next design.
And I think the consensus at the last meeting was we do want a secure entrance. When this project is complete, there's a very good likelihood that will be the kind of the focal point, and that will serve as the main entrance quite regularly. So I believe the message is yes, we do want a secured entrance. UNESCO has some work to do. I think the other question that really came up that we talked at length about too is that concession area appropriately sized, and could we potentially gain some square footage from there in order to do some other things with community ed offices and stuff like that. So yeah, there'll be more discussion as we move forward.
So it is on the docket. Anything else anybody saw? Okay. Go ahead.
Was there a mention at all about the softball, or is that's not in the referendum, so I'm assuming that's going to be discussed separately?
We didn't address that here. I think that's a separate topic.
That's not going to be in any of this design team work. Interesting you say that because I actually stopped at St. Ben's today and toured their facility as well. And so I had a chance to check that out. My hope, though, is that we can do the softball work and coordinate it so it is going on when the other facility work is going. But as far as it being a discussion point in the final design of this project, it probably is not going to be an agenda item that you'll see on these meetings, but it will be stuff that will be coming up as we prepare to do our facility improvements for the 2021 year.
Thank you.
Rick, did you see anything in the notes on the design group that you might have questions about? Okay, so everybody's on the same page. Questions come up, don't wait with those questions. Try and get a hold of any of the three of us or Matt. So we're doing this on the run. There's going to be meetings happening relatively rapidly. We just want to make sure everybody's on page. Were you pretty comfortable with the minutes? Maggie was our note taker.
Yes.
And I thought they were very complete on all the topics we talked about. Yeah, everybody okay with that?
Yes.
There's a lot of notes on a bunch of the items, just the auto shop addition and the CTE remodel at the end. I don't know if you just maybe did a cursory whatever, but it seems like there's a lot more detail in the others on what's all needed.
Well, that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
So I kind of just, I didn't add anything if there wasn't discussion.
No, I know,
Yeah.
exactly. I wasn't critiquing the
Yeah.
notes. I'm just wondering
Yeah.
if that will get more attention as we go on.
The auto shop and the CTE, there's a lot more detail as far as the equipment that they need that didn't necessarily belong in this first meeting's discussion. We were more kind of talking about structure of rooms and walls than we were about what's going into the rooms and walls, so.
No, I thought they were very concise. Thank you. It really gave a good overview of what was discussed.
Good.
Okay, any other items you'd like to talk about on the design team? Okay, then let's go to the next one. Let's go to the baseball stadium lease.
All right, so there are three items here that are resources. The existing lease, which is expired, and so that's part of the reason why we need to have a discussion here tonight. There's also an operations and maintenance plan. I think all that really, as I looked that over, I don't know that anything needs to be changed with it except maybe update the names of the people on the last page of it. But it's there as well. I don't think anything else in that plan has to really change. And then historically, going back to 2015, what has been charged back to the Baseball Association is the third resource. So I guess the question I'm wondering at this point in time is I'm looking for just some input from the board as far as what your expectation is with this lease as we move forward. So let me ask this question. Go ahead, Bruce. Go ahead.
Because maybe we address another one. If, from my perspective, it's working very nicely with what we have, but are we missing something? Could we be using it in a different fashion, or I'm just throwing it out.
As I say, my question kind of behind that is from the school's perspective, has there been any issues that we should be looking at? I mean, it sounds like things have been pretty smooth and are pretty covered, so depending on if there's other things that...
So this is, from my opinion, this is what I would suggest. I know that there is specific language in there that says and recognizes the work that the Baseball Association put into that facility and getting that facility to what it is. And because of that, there was not going to be a rental charge for the Baseball Association. After now having that facility up for 4 or 5 years now, in my mind, the simplest way to operate the agreement would simply to have a rental agreement in place with the Baseball Association. That would be the simplest way. Right now, it basically, if you go to page
3.
Yep.
3, it talks about in lieu of cash rent with respect to the Paynesville amateur baseball games. Then they go down and they talk about a usage fee based on net profit from events that shall be paid on the following schedule. 10% of net profit up to $1,000, 15% from $1,001 to $3,000, and it follows that scale. As I read that, as an outsider who wasn't part of any of the discussions as to how this agreement came to be, that part to me looks like it was written for when the Baseball Association hosts the amateur region tournament. I mean, it even says net profit shall include ticket sales, concession sales, and program sales. Those are the 3 things that region baseball tournament makes any proceeds on. My understanding of how that amateur event is being handled now, it's going to be more of simply just a rotation amongst the 14 teams that make up that region. And so we're essentially right now operating on a lease that is designed for an event that we're going to host potentially 1 out of every 14 years.
Well, they do charge tickets for every game. So every game there's tickets and
Well, they
I
do-
believe so. I mean, is that?
At the
I don't know.
7th inning, or excuse me, at about the 6th inning or
Yeah, they
so,
probably-
they will send somebody around with a hat and ask you to put $4 in.
Yeah.
But if you don't have $4 in, then your admission is free. So I mean, it's not like they have a ticket booth where somebody is charging $4 for everybody to come in and then they issue you a ticket. So to me, the rent paragraph in this is incredibly, it's more complex than it needs to be. What I would suggest is, and I think the thing to look at is that historical chart, or that data from the 5 years of chargebacks. I mean, this is essentially what the district received from the Baseball Association going back to 14-15 school year up through the 19-20 school year. 19-20 payment is coming. It hasn't been deposited yet, but it is coming. The 18-19 and previous, those are all deposited. So I think we're starting to get a trend now and can come up with a good idea of where this has fallen. I would like to take this structure and potentially look at just having it be a rental agreement where maybe we do rental for June, July, and August at one rate, and then maybe we do rental for the other 9 months at a lesser rate because the facility is being used far less during the other months.
I think your idea is right. When we put this together, we weren't sure, there was conversation of all this monster money we were going to make, right? So all the numbers you said were to try, and if somebody was going to make us a lot of money, we didn't want to take it all. That was the goal. We wanted to take a portion to make it work. Well, we now have events going on there, but they fall into the nonprofit, so we give them the stadium for that $100 or whatever it is. And the public owns it anyway. It was all there. Making a rent makes some sense to me. We just didn't have anything to go with. We were just
Well, and I understand why this is how it was, because when you're just having a facility that's never been used and it's just opening up, it would be really hard to agree on what rent is. And now I think we at least have some data, and we can look back and see, okay, this is where the bills have fallen out. I think now is the time, if we want to simplify this contract and put in it be a rental contract, I think now's the time we have data that we could actually go and do that. It would simplify a lot of things if we just simply had a rental contract.
The piece of paper that was sent out, or was electronically sent to us, sounded like it was what we charged for utilities.
Correct.
So what kind of income did we get from the Baseball Association?
Right there, that's what you're looking at.
So all we got was what was paid for utilities?
Yes. Yep.
So they're not paying for utilities, they're only turning in 1% of their profits?
No. What I can tell you is those historical figures, those have always, I have no idea where 14-15, where that $500 came from. I don't know, I can't tell you that. But I can tell you 15-16, 16-17, 17-18, 18-19, and 19-20, all of those numbers are 50% of the utilities for the ballpark. That's where the number has been based on. I have not seen anything that would speak to page 3,
The 10%.
paragraph
The 10%,
5.
the 15%.
The 10%, the 15%,
Nothing has
the
been
20, the
turned in.
25%. I have nothing. And the other thing is, we don't have, that's the part that I struggle with this too, because for us to execute something like this, we need to be running that facility. We need to be keeping the inventory in that concession stand. After an event, somebody needs to go back and inventory it and do all of those things. And that's not anything that's been happening up to this point.
Now, does the Amateur Baseball Association giving us donations? Because there was a period of time where those people, if all of a sudden we needed something for one of the parks or something, that all of a sudden they were coughing up money. Do we have an idea what that is?
Well, I know that last year they had about 250 hours of labor put in between the football field, the baseball field, the JV baseball field, and the softball fields. Now that labor was anywhere ranging from weed control to repairing irrigation system to just general upkeep of mowing and all of that stuff. Last summer alone, June through about September 15th, they had put in about 250 hours of labor.
So when we talk about what they're giving us, that was part of it, and that was an intangible. When we put the original agreement together, we didn't know what it was. It's just that group seemed to come up with something here and there. I know there was a period of time where if they were going to make extra money here, they were going to throw it back at us. Their group didn't really need the money. Well, 250 hours is not a freebie either.
Right.
And I think we all appreciate that, but I think that it wasn't just this, they are participant in the...
Yeah, and the other thing, and I did meet with the Baseball Association briefly just to talk a little bit about this, and, they have some other plans too, that they want to do some improvements and, do some things with bullpens and stuff like that, and their intent with that is that that's not going to be expense that the district is going to be paying. That's an expense that, they're going to have people doing that. They're going to be doing those upgrades. So as far as them actually writing a check to the district for things.
Correct.
Not per se, but for instance, like when Kenny Osendorf fixes the irrigation system, whether it be on the football field or baseball field, a lot of times the Baseball Association is paying the bill for the equipment that he has to go run and get to fix it. It's not like they're purchasing the stuff and then, or the district's purchasing it and then they're writing us a check for it. So the answer to your question is yes, I think so, but it's more the Baseball Association is just writing the check for it rather than than giving the district money and then the district paying for it.
We felt it was going to be, when we did this, we felt it was going to be a working relationship, and I just knew there were things going on that they were a participant in.
They're not getting any recognition for the donations, and technically those donations should be brought to the board.
Say that again?
Yeah, you and Rick, didn't you say something about that?
Yeah.
From the conference?
Technically, all donations to the school need to be brought to the board for approval.
Correct.
And if that were done, the Baseball Association would get recognition for that.
Okay.
So when they donate equipment or time or whatever, it should be brought to the board.
In-kind donations are not brought to the board. If somebody comes and volunteers at the elementary school to read to kindergartners, that's called an in-kind donation.
That's not.
Those aren't things that the board has to approve or anything.
But equipment or things like that, that's supposed to be brought to the board.
Yeah, if somebody's donating if someone would donate a lawnmower for, say, to use to mow the baseball stadium, yeah, that piece of equipment would go on our asset inventory. It would become our equipment. That absolutely would be a donation that would have to be formally accepted by the board. But if somebody spends 100 hours out fixing the baseball pitching mounds.
So manpower isn't.
Yeah, labor donation and stuff like that. An in-kind donation is not something that the board is.
So money would actually have to hit our account before we would.
Correct.
If it doesn't hit our
Or
account.
we would have to have an asset that we're putting on our asset inventory in order for that to be.
So if they're renting equipment and returning it, that's not up to us, that we don't, because that's not going on our asset, that's just them taking care of.
My only point was that we're getting that, and technically it is valuable to us.
Right.
So I just didn't want it to seem
Well,
like that's
let's
all
be,
we got.
yeah, let's be honest.
We got a lot.
Because if we don't have them putting in 250 hours, that means our buildings and ground staff has to put in 250 hours. I mean.
Well, I'm not saying they shouldn't.
14 is what we're paying for a step one custodian, and you put benefits on top of that, you're probably at $17 an hour. So I mean, yeah, there's definitely some value at whatever that $250 is valued.
I was just thinking they're getting no recognition for all of
Yeah,
this
you're-
time.
I don't think, I don't know that they're really.
They're not looking for it,
I don't know that they're concerned about
I know
being
they're not
recognized
looking
for
for
it. I really
Pats
don't.
on the back, but
Yeah.
No, every time I turn around, those guys are working like crazy. But when we put the original agreement together, we already kind of had a working relationship. The whole thing was built on a working relationship, and it has continued. And it has been a nice thing for our school and everything, that if you take those numbers and just move them to a specific number, I just think it would clean it up really nice. That whole deal there was, when it started, we had other groups that were looking to come in, except they were all nonprofit groups anyway. I think there was a thought that some for-profit company was going to come in, but that's going to come to the board anyway. A for-profit company comes in, they're going to share for the use of the facility, but we haven't had that in 5 years. I kind of
But
think it's
as
not
the
gonna
agreement stands, like, we're not fulfilling the contract anyway, because we're not keeping track of it, so it makes sense to just change it. We're not keeping track of 10% of the profit, so I think it makes sense.
I think
to
it
put
would be
something
easiest
that's
just to have it
easy to
into a
have.
rental. So here's what I would like to do. I would like to take this back then. I would like to go and sit down with a couple of the Baseball Association members, be able to come up with a draft of this, and then bring it back to the board to review. And what I would suggest is, let's get this in draft form. You guys can review it at the October business meeting, and then it would be something that we would actually execute a new agreement in November, type of a thing. So it'd be like a first reading, second reading. Technically, I don't think we need to have 2 readings, but I think it would be good just to go over it. People can have some time to think about it. If there's questions, then we can come back next month and formally approve something.
So you're thinking we do a 3 or 5 year or something?
Well,
I mean, we already gone 5 years and 2 years was just on a slide.
I would like to do a 5-year lease, but then I'd like to have a clause in here to say that if the lease isn't renegotiated, that it remains in full force and effect until one of the parties opts to terminate, and then put a clause in there as far as how much termination time they would need. So even if 5 years is up, nobody's terminated, this would still be in full force and effect. Okay? All right, so I will get together with them, and then the plan will be then look for the baseball lease to come to the business meeting in October.
And my hope is that, I mean, it would be a mutually beneficial relationship. They've been great partners, like that note, like, it comes out fair in both ways. I think it's just, like, I wouldn't want anybody to feel that the partnership, you know, we're trying to make more money off it or not. It's a great asset to our community. They do a ton of work. I think it's awesome that they can play in this field. They were a big part in helping it get built. So that everybody comes out feeling it's a fair contract that can be actually enacted on.
Sounds good.
I just have one question then, okay?
Yep.
On the sale of liquor,
Yep.
approved by the school will consider each request on a case-by-case basis. At what point do we consider those requests? Or are we just assuming that they have that they can sell at the amateur baseball league?
So
We assume that, or do we approve that on a year-to-year basis?
So the way this is written, the school would have to approve that annually.
Right.
But I think what they're really talking about with case-by-case basis is if there would be a other event.
Fire department event we have, they came to us to explain what it was.
Yep.
Yeah, they followed exactly how we wrote it.
But it doesn't say in here that the amateur baseball league, it just says events. So either that has to be put in there, or we should be approving that each year.
And you haven't been approving it each
No, we
year?
have not been.
No, we have not.
Let me just bring that question back to them as well.
Yeah, does it have to be an annual approval? Or
That's
can it just be
exactly
part
what-
of-
that's exactly what I was
is there a case where we would decide to change that?
Well, for league play, one thing, okay, but then when there's a tournament,
Right, in the tournament case potentially, but as league play, I mean, would they have to
Every
come
tournament.
back every year and?
I'll be honest, I was a little concerned last summer, but they dropped it.
Yep.
But my understanding when this is approved is that this would be for adult activities, not youth tournaments. And yet last summer already, they were coming with the youth tournament saying, can we sell alcohol? They then, since they found out the lease was already expired, that was dropped. I don't know why they dropped it, but I'm just concerned that you open the door and then they start, well, can we do this, can we do that? So at what point are we making sure that we're making sure that we're
So
hearing?
let me ask this question then, Rick. Are you also indicating that you feel there is importance in having them come back every year for approval for the amateur games? Or are you comfortable potentially in this agreement stipulating that the approval for the amateur game for the life of this contract is approved, just any event outside of those amateur games would have to come
Right.
back to the board and evaluated at a case-by-case basis?
As long as we understand, that's for those league games now, tournaments.
Yep.
We have the right to refuse.
Right,
Yeah.
even,
At any
I don't know if you
point.
want to add league tournaments,
Yeah.
which are normal part of their league
Yeah.
season, but if it's a special,
Outside of that.
And I don't think the Baseball Association will have any issue with
Okay.
that. I really don't.
just don't want any assumptions.
Yep.
Yep. Well, it's worked quite comfortably. It was a bugger to get this all set up when we did it. So, any other on that topic, or should we move on?
I understand there was a little bit of issue with scheduling between the Baseball Association and Community Ed. Have they resolved that issue? I think it was discussed.
We sat down with them and worked through some things.
You worked it out, okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Then we're going to move to D, budget after audit. So obviously, Matt, you got the audit stuff done.
Okay. I just put something in the wrong place. Give me a second here before I fix my screw up. Okay. All right. So the auditors were out in the district last week. Yeah, I think these weeks, 2 weeks ago, these weeks are running together. It was either last week or 2 weeks ago. It was the end of September, so it's been 2 weeks ago, but they were out for their 3-day visit. The good news is the district continues to be in stable financial health, which is good. Obviously, the benefit to that is we just saw one of the benefits to that in the interest rate that we got with bonds and Moody's upgrading our credit and all of that. So this is a preliminary draft of what the board is going to see or hear from the auditors. They will be out at the November school board meeting. And just to give you, I'm going to just run down a couple of items on this. You'll see that the general fund unassigned fund balance will see an enhancement there. There is some movement right now that could go on. Part of the reason why that is more than what we were anticipating is about $120,000 or so that is related to special ed funding. That is it is something that when Carrie and I were sitting down and putting in our special ed expenses and students, we were not expecting our reimbursement to be what it's going to turn out to be. So that is it was an error on the good side, meaning we got more reimbursement than we were planning for. That's not how it always works. I've been on the other side of that too, where we make an assumption and all of a sudden we're $80,000 short on our special ed reimbursement, and that can swing the other way very quickly. The other piece to this is conservative budgeting as well, and so we did end up with additional students last year than what we were anticipating with budgeting, so that's really the bulk of where this fund balance increase is coming from. The other pieces, as you move through this, the thing that I think is the best part about it is there's very little red numbers when it comes to the annual budget balance. The red numbers that we did have, for instance, if you scroll down towards the bottom where we have our operating capital, that $123,370, those were planned expenses that we were knowing were coming up. and we were planning on tapping into those funds. You can see we are still carrying a healthy fund balance there. So again, what that means is it's just prudent planning. We're being able to budget dollars, put some dollars aside, and then when it's time for a project to go, it's going, and we are tapping into those dollars that we have set aside and budgeted for things. If you look at Fund 6, the construction fund, you'll see that's also a $252,000 deficit, and that's the large portion of that is because of the final payment or the final expenses associated with the bond issuing. And so that would be a large expenditure where you're not taking in very much revenue. The revenue is just being spent. So the long and short of it is what you're going to hear from the budget or from the auditors when they come is the district is making good budget decisions. And the better part is the district is also following their budget decisions. And so I think that's something that the board should be commended on. But it will be good news. I did learn from our auditors that they have corrected one of the things I have been doing for 12 years. They did cite me for not getting board approval for electronic fund transfers. It's interesting. I had an interesting conversation. I've been using the same language with school boards for the last 12 years, and it's never been an issue. And now this year, it is an issue. So you're going to actually see a fix that we're going to do in October, so we don't get cited again next year for it. But that is one finding that they will have. I'll be quite frank, I was surprised when they came to talk to me about it, but they're the auditors. I'm not the auditor, so they can certainly do that. But we will fix it.
Will they present that at the work session or the regular board meeting?
They'll be at the regular board meeting. Yep.
It's not the first time that's happened. The auditors that we seem to have now, my impression is are very good at this, but they keep us very current. We have had times where sometimes we didn't stay as current. They took it over from another accountant, everything was fine, but I think it just moves around, and so you can't take that one totally. Yeah, probably could have been okay for 11 years, but doesn't in the 12.
Yeah.
Because that's what we found from these auditors.
But and the thing that I guess I still sleep okay at night because it's not like we're having to change our practice. What we are currently doing is what we're supposed to be doing. They just want some more language in the actual motion in the July organizational meeting. So I will make sure moving forward that that's taken care of, and I'm going to have the board fix it for the 1920 school year as well in the October meeting. So, but all in all, it's very good news from the auditor. I think, and you'll hear this from them when they come out, it was a good visit. They found everybody to be helpful, cooperative, and there's really no concerns I think that the auditors have as far as our finances are concerned. Other questions at all about the audit?
So is our percentage, I know it has to, I forget the percentage that we have to have.
It's 8%.
How are we tracking in comparison to last year?
We're above 8%.
Awesome.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, we are. Yeah, and it's interesting because I've been in districts that have had larger fund balances than this, and there's certainly some people that believe that the district shouldn't have a fund balance. I believe it's really important for us to have a healthy fund balance, especially given our size, hovering around that 1,000 student mark. When you're on that 1,000 students or less, a few students here or there, variance can really impact an overall budget. And so as you get to those smaller or medium small schools, it is important to have a healthy fund balance. And so I think we're sitting in a place that's comfortable right now, that is a good place to be.
When I first got on, thank goodness to the board before us that we were in the process on a referendum, but it didn't look at all like this. We were just thinking, man, if we could ever hit that 8%, it seemed like forever, but we had lots of things that we had to do to get that far, and it's worked. But in all seriousness, I wouldn't have thought that it was going to work out. It looked really kind of grim for us to get a grip on this thing, but it just took time.
So the next steps with this, so this budget sheet you'll see again in November when the auditors do come out. Now, essentially what we're going to do is the board's going to have to approve the audit. And then after the board approves the audit, what you're also going to do is you're going to approve another budget sheet like this. So what we will do is take the, whether you call that blue or green column on the far right, the ending fund balance, we will take those numbers all the way down this spreadsheet, and then we will actually paste those into the 1920 preliminary budget. So we will take our audited funds that the auditor says this is what you have in all of your categorical funds, and we'll put that in that's our beginning fund balance for the 1920 school year. Then we'll run our revenue and income projections, and you'll be able to see where our preliminary budget would put us for an ending fund balance at the end of the 1920 school year. Realistically, in February, the board will see a revised budget. And then that revised budget is also what we would start the process of planning for the 2021 school year as well. And if there would have to be any budget corrections or anything associated with that, the board would interact with that again in February.
Where does the safe school money land, that extra 35?
So the safe school, it is in the restricted accounts. It's in the general fund, but if you go under Fund 1, total line 40, if you go up just a few, line 36, reserved for safe schools, it will be in that, it's not. It is not in here. So that will show up now in our 1920.
Awesome.
That's going to show up, and the dollar amount is, I believe, I saw an MDE run, it's like $34,200 and some dollars is, I think, what the district should see on that.
Okay. So the last item then is a request for information and roundtable. We have kind of been busy with a lot of different things. If anybody has topics we should consider, now would be a good time to bring topic up, and then we can address it at the next meeting. Anybody got?
Keeping it, we had talked, I don't know if it was the last meeting, maybe closer to Christmas time, maybe bringing in some faculty members just to talk about how things are going after they've had some time to acclimate to all the changes, I think would be great.
I talked to a faculty member today and was surprised to hear that they are teaching 2 classes at the same time. I don't know about you, but that sounds like not the kind of balancing act I necessarily would want.
What kind of classes?
Well, I don't want to talk about the classes, but it's just a situation that, I mean, in theory works, but I don't know if I'd want kids.
There are teachers that have, if there's a class that is like a 1, 2, 3, and there weren't enough students to sign up for the higher level, then there are students that are doing some independent study, but it's not 2 classes simultaneously.
This is 2 different formats of class.
Well, and I would like to know what that is, because there are teachers that are using differentiated instruction.
And they did mention that that was another one too, but that it's not, because it's not different formats, it's a little easier, but no, even this teacher said that this is a preferable format so far, I think, so. Yeah.
It's just teaching to the different levels of students that are in there, which we would do.
Ironing out, how to do some of these things. I was gonna ask about the e-learning, because I heard that that's where we're being thrown around, and I started getting nervous, like, do we have to start thinking about this? But it sounds like you guys are already on it, so.
So as far as e-learning is concerned, I mean, the buildings are still working on testing and giving things a try. It's going to be a learn as you go is what's going to end up happening.
I've never even heard of it till you brought it up last year. I didn't know districts did this, but
The other thing that is going to happen is after parent-teacher conferences, then both buildings will have had an opportunity to do like an e-learning test or demo on-site with students. I think that will also give us a lot of insight as far as what that plan looks like. Once we have a final plan, that final plan is going to come to the board. But I don't think at this point, until we do some demo and troubleshooting on it, I mean, we could have you approve what is the plan right now, and I think it would just be coming back in a couple months and asking to reapprove it because it's going to change. So as we gather some more information, ultimately, you're going to end up seeing what we think is a first shot at an e-learning plan.
do we have to approve it, or is that just an administrative thing?
No, I'm going to have the board approve it. We don't send it anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. We don't have to send it into MDE or anything. But I will have the board approve it. And then, yeah, it's going to be fluid is what's going to end up happening with it.
Well, if I kind of listen just a little bit, trying to figure out maybe projecting forward a little bit, there was some conversation about somebody you were going to bring in to talk to us. I'm just going to speak for myself. I like to hear from the instructors. I like to hear when the math department was coming in. Didn't take a lot, but they kind of told us what was kind of going on. For me, my perspective is when we are 1 month and 1 week into this new schedule, to have it clicking along this well, I think is amazing. That it's going to work perfect. I have not found perfect in my life anywhere, and I don't think we will find perfect everywhere, but it is going very, very well. And then, like the e-learning, you address that, so when that comes up. But if you see something else, it doesn't mean that somebody can come and tell us just how fantastic things are, or whatever they think, just so a little perspective. Does that make sense?
You bet.
Am I kind of interpreting a little bit? And then, not that we don't want to hear from you on a standard basis, it's sometimes a little extracurricular wouldn't hurt us either. And we can kind of work it through. So anybody have anything else they're thinking about? Okay, remember what I said, I'm going to go back to that design thing. Questions come up, you got to get to these members quickly so that we're on top of it. We don't want to let anything kind of sit there and then a whole bunch of questions come up at a meeting when nobody's got any answers. We might as well get it all done. Okay, and
Can I say
then
one other thing? Sorry. Other, just like data in general, I'm excited about like Infinite Campus and the fast, like different programs, just hearing like how things are going. And I'm really interested in hearing, you know, based off of having fewer times that students are out in the hallways, like are issues going down. I think just some of that stuff is, I'm assuming it's going down. I think it's just good to share. It's a good format that people can hear and see. Like that's something maybe people aren't thinking about, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal, I think, to most community members for safety and issues. So I'm just excited we're going to have access to more data and just to be able to share more good news in that format. So
I haven't tried yet. Is there a way for us board members to get onto Infinite Campus if we don't have students? I was just interested in seeing how it is laid out.
You've got somebody you could go and look over the shoulder and
Yes, I could go speak to someone.
that's really cool.
well, I think that pretty much covers everything. If there's nothing else, then we are done for tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank all of you for coming.